This class is about observation and assessment. So as you begin your practicum, you're going to go in and just sit and watch. Now, why do we observe? We observe to take in information. We observe to learn. And so when you think about observing, I want you to think about what you have observed today. What have you watched today? Did you watch people? Did you watch the news? Did you watch something on TV? What did you notice about those things? Sometimes we notice things that other people don't notice, and so it's really important to be able to observe, especially in the early childhood classroom. Early childhood needs to have people that are observant, that can go in and take objective notes. Now when you think about taking notes, think about being objective and not subjective. Objective means that you write down just the facts. Subjective means that you put your own spin on it. So for example, if a child is crying, then you would just write, the child is crying. If the child it started crying because someone hit them, and you wrote, the child was struck and the child cried. That's objective. But if you said, the child cried like a baby, then that's subjective. The like a baby part is the subjective part. Or the child cried because someone struck them when they couldn't get their way. Couldn't get their way is subjective. So make sure you write down just the facts. What you see, just the facts. All right, so today we're going to talk about a class list log. And a class list log, the purpose of it is for people to be able, for a teacher to be able to go into a classroom and to look at one specific type of behavior and to look at that on many occasions. So you're going to be provided with a document that's a template. And all it is just a piece of paper that you put information at the top. You're going to log your name or your initials as the recorder. You're going to log the date. Dates are very important when you collect data, when you do observations. That's collecting data. You're going to put what it is that you are observing and list for a class list log, you're going to list their names down the side of the paper. List them in alphabetical order because that makes it easier for you to go and find their name as opposed to just looking for their name in a list of jumbled up names. So for today's example, we're going to talk about looking at separation anxiety. When parents drop off a child, sometimes the children have difficulty, sometimes they have ease. And so for this assignment, what you're going to do is look at separation anxiety. This type of observation can be used to look at different things, but for today's example, we're looking at separation. So when the parents come in, I want you to look at how each child adjusts when they're left off. Make a note about each child. So if Susie is crying, then just make a note, Susie cries and hangs on to mom's leg. Or if Adam is doing well, just say Adam walks into the classroom and goes and plays with a friend. Make notes about how each child is adjusting. If you were looking at separation anxiety, for example, and if this was an issue with any particular group of children, you could look back over time when you do this, say you do it once a week, and you could look back over time and see progress or see regression. And that will help you give information to the parents about making a plan for something that might need to happen. So, what are the advantages of a class list log? They're quick and easy. You can record very specific information. It gives specific, dated, brief, factual information. It can be transferred to other documents, and you can use it later for comparison. What are the disadvantages of it? The form can become outdated because the children can move in and out of your classroom. If I were using it for my class, I would make one form with everyone's name and run it off. I wouldn't write their name every single time. But as you get new children to the classroom, or children age out of your classroom or graduate out of your class, then you have to update the form, and that's kind of a nuisance. So rewriting, that would be time-consuming. It has limited information. You're looking at one specific task. You're not looking at a group of tasks. Don't try to use this for a group of tasks. It doesn't work. And it could be repeated for valuable information, but if it says the same thing over and over and over again and it's not really addressing whatever the issue is underneath, it may not be a valuable tool. Some pitfalls to avoid: always remember to date the document. It's important to keep the date. If you get a bunch of documents and they don't have dates, you don't know which one came first and which one came last. It's really important to see that progression. Include the time and the setting, because if you're looking at arrivals, it's important that you look at the time. Arrivals at 6:30 in the morning may be different for children than arrivals at 10 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes children don't get up so easily, so if the arrivals are at 6:30 in the morning, then it might be a problem for a child just because they don't like to wake up in the morning. You need to select observable criteria, so you can't really select something that can't be repeated over and over again, like how a child reacts when they are disciplined. That just happens periodically, and so and it doesn't happen to the whole class at a whole time. So you need to make sure you choose things that are observable, things that can be repeated, things that are observable criteria. And then you can write short factual notes. Don't spend a lot of time writing a whole bunch of stuff. Just really short factual notes. So if the child was crying, write crying. If the child was hanging on mom's leg, write clinging. If the child was screaming, write screaming. If the child goes to play with a child, just say child enters and goes to play with Jason. Okay. When you're done with it, you can look at that information and you can reflect on it. You can make comments at the bottom that are your reflection, and those are your personal notes. You don't write them in the objective part. And the reason is because when you share that information with parents, you want to be as objective as possible. Because sometimes if you show any kind of subjectivity and a parent disagrees with you, it causes big conflict. So make sure you present just the facts. You can make your own personal notes. In fact, I would recommend that you make your own personal notes because you know all the nuances that are going on within the classroom. Documenting the student's behavior, because it's written after the fact, is something that you shouldn't use. You should not use highly inferential or emotionally based content, and just make sure that everything is very, very factual. It's important to stay to the facts.